With questions on whether or not a new Batman will be introduced into James Gunn's DCU, or if Robert Pattinson will be merged into it, I hesitated about making this video. I even re-recorded it because my thoughts on what would happen with Matt Reeves and the DCU Batman are constantly changing. Should Robert Pattinson be in the DCU? Should they merge? Or should they keep him separate and have two Batmen at the same time? Gunn has said multiple times there will be a new Batman in the DCU, but there's also been multiple times where he's given some vague and interesting answers. The general public seem to want the merge as everyone loves Pattinson, and they also seem to hate every other fan cast for a new Batman. And hey, I get it, Pattinson is amazing, and why would you want to try something else? And at this point, with how long it's taken for Reeves to write the Batman, I wouldn't be surprised if some weird shenanigans happen where they do merge and he had to rewrite to make the merge happen. But here's where I'm at. I don't want the merge to happen. I don't think the Batman in the DCU should be fresh and early in his career. I don't want another grounded and, more importantly, young Batman that will be finally at his peak by 2035 minimum. If we start with a young Batman and we see him train Dick Grayson from Robin and then he leaves to be Nightwing, that's gonna take a damn long time. I don't understand why people are obsessed with Batman having to be the same age as Superman, or why we need to even build up the Bat family in the first place. I thought people are sick of origin stories. Yes, it would absolutely fit with Superman as they can grow together, but on the other side of that coin, an older, grizzled, and more experienced Batman can also fit with a young, hopeful, and fresh Superman. They can bounce off and learn from each other. So my main point is I don't want to have to wait 10 years to see a prime Batman and the Bat family. Sure, they can skip some Robins and dial some ages up and down, and even though I like some Robins more than others, if they did that then it wouldn't be a real Bat family. DC has a rich history, and while Marvel started from ground zero and did a fantastic job, the DCU doesn't have to do that. Superheroes are commonplace. Everybody knows who Batman is, and everybody knows what makes him tick. But I doubt the general audience knows that the second Robin died and returned as a villain, or that the fourth Robin is his biological son who is torn from being a caped hero and a ninja assassin all at the age of 10. I doubt the general audience even knows there are 4 main Robins. And that's what it seems the DCU is trying to be. A living and breathing universe. People's lives have already happened off screen, and it's a perfect fit for a branching family of crime fighters, all with their own personalities and problems. Even before Brave and the Bold was announced, this is how I've always wanted Batman to be introduced in a broader and more connective universe. Not to the point where he's really old and tired and weary, but also not to the point where he's young and inexperienced and naive. I've heard people say they want Batman and Superman to be the same age for Super Sons, but really? Super Sons? Look, if seeing Damian and John be 10 years apart to get a prime Batman with a history and a pre-established Bat family, then that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. And if this movie is going to coincide with Matt Reeves' Batman, having a pre-established Bat family is a perfect way to show how different these takes are. So in this video, I'll talk about what the future of the DCU Batman could look like, while in another video, I will probably dive into what I think the future holds for Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson's Batman. So originally I had 4 movies that sounded like movie pitches, but I've scrapped all of that. There are more talented creators out there that do a way better job than I could ever do. So instead, I'm just gonna throw some stuff at the wall and see if you agree or disagree. Let me know in the comments what you think. But before we get started, we need to paint a picture of what the DCU Batman is actually gonna look like. Looks-wise, I've seen a lot of people talk about the classic blue and grey outfit, and admittedly, I was against it, but after playing Arkham Knight with that suit on, I think it could work for on-screen. It can contrast really well with the Reeves Batman and the DCU Batman. Make these two versions very different, while also keeping the tone somewhat, serious. Gunn doesn't want a goofy Batman. I think of Batman like a progressive RPG, and match suits to his age at the time. It's kinda weird, but early in his career, he has like an armored and rough suit with the long ears. As he progresses, his ears get shorter while his suit gets more sleek as he's a master of evading damage, and can focus on having a lighter suit to outmaneuver his enemies because he's not really getting hit as much. As for the underpants, or the briefs, whatever you want to call them, absolutely. I understand why the grounded and serious takes chose not to go with the underpants, but this is the prime time to do it. In the Making of Superman video that WB posted a little bit ago, they talk about the evolution of the suit and how originally they weren't going to have the underpants, until I think from memory David pushed for it and they realized that it looks like just a basic blue suit. So if that can work for Superman, maybe it can work for Batman to break up the grey suit and avoid a New 52 situation. However, what I really want and what I will fight for is the cape over the shoulders. I have waited too long to see Batman do a superhero landing in front of some criminals with the cape stretched out around him, and then he stands up and the cape comes up with him. It would look so good. At the end of the day, I don't really care what the suit looks like, but if there was one thing I could choose, it would be the cape over the shoulders. Now, the one word I would use to describe this iteration of the character Overpowered. He has to be the most powerful Batman we've ever seen. This is not a grounded universe, and Batman is a peak human with no powers, so he has to hold himself up in this fantastical world. If a giant shark or a clay monster, and even Frankenstein's monster exists in this universe, then Batman needs to be able to beat all three of them. He needs to be able to go up against massive groups of criminals with somewhat ease. He is known for being one of DC's greatest fighters, and they need to show that. Not just his martial prowess, but his ability to lead and strategize through problems he faces, whether it's by himself or with a team, which is what I want his role to be in the eventual Justice League. A field leader using all these different heroes to perform at their best. I also want this Batman to focus on just being a hero. The end of the Batman was one of the best comic book endings, and I want more of that. I want more of a known legendary hero rather than just a myth. A hero that Gotham loves, rather than a boogeyman that might just be the story made up to scare criminals. And this can contrast really well with Matt Reeves' movies. Pattinson is young, angry, and feared, while this Batman has already achieved the heroic status that Gotham knows. And if this movie is going to coincide with Matt Reeves' Batman, having a pre-established Bat family is a perfect way to show how different these takes are. Corruption has been minimized, and now there are bigger threats to deal with. So now you have the basic idea of what this Batman looks like and how he operates. Let's dive into his movies and talk about what side characters, villains, and storylines I want to see. So at the start, we're limited in what direction this goes in, as the first movie has already been decided, but here we are. Batman, Brave and the Bold, or I prefer, personally, Batman and Son. Basically what I want to see as the core of this movie is the dynamic between a father who has his life together at this point, and a homicidal son that is a little bitch to deal with. So I've heard people say how they would rather have Batman train Robin for the first time as Dick Grayson, rather than a fourth, and it isn't special, because he's already done this before, why do we want to see this guy do it again? But I really disagree with that take. Not only is he training a new Robin that is his biological son, but he's also undoing the ruthlessness and the killer instinct taught by the League of Assassins. Damian can be so interesting when he's bouncing back and forth between the Bat and the League of Assassins and his grandfather. So I want this movie to be a simple father-son bonding story with superheroes in the mix. Introduce the audience straight away to a more fantastical and borderline superhuman Batman that is at the top of his game. So at the start of every movie, I want Batman to interact with either a villain from his rogues gallery as like a start, cold open action piece, or talking to a superhero that he knows, whether he's arresting someone like Mad Hatter or talking to Superman in the cave, just for a brief cameo, just to show that this Batman has been around for a long time and really shows the history and connects the world around him. So after we're introduced to this new Batman and we see the Batcave and Alfred and everything else this Batman has in the DCU, we can meet Talia and Damian. Now man, they can have so much fun with Damian. I really hope he's casted young, give me a kind of hit girl energy from Kick-Ass. Having this 10 to 13 year old kid with a katana chopping and slicing people up, it would be great. Now what I need from this movie are three things. Batman teaches Damian the no-kill rule, and at the end they become the dynamic duo. Introduce the Bat family, or at least a Nightwing. And also introduce Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins, but not as antagonists. Even though the movies came out almost 20 years ago, I think they're still fresh in the minds of people who watched the Nolan movies, or even Arrow, and I would like to flesh out the complicated relationship between Ra's al Ghul and the world's greatest detective, without having some kind of hostile and antagonistic nature about them in the movie. Yes, they are rivals, but there is some kind of respect for the two. Even have him as a recurring character in these movies due to his connection with Damian, and another person we will get to soon enough. So similar to Talon in the Batman vs Robin animated movie, Damian will go back and forth, constantly arguing with Bruce and Alfred, but eventually he's swayed more towards his father's way, and the movie ends with the two as partners and Damian choosing to stay with his father. That's just the skeleton for the movie that I want. I've barely even spoken about a villain that I want because I don't really care. Maybe someone evil enough and vile to push Damian down the road to killing. Kinda similar to how Talon acts in Batman vs Robin, but honestly, with how many villains Batman has, so many villains can fit that. As long as it has those elements, I'm happy with whatever. Now with Brave and the Bold out of the way, I think the movie most likely to happen is an Under the Red Hood adaptation. Red Hood to the DCU is like what the Court of Owls is to the Matt Reeves Batman. We will get there. But I hope it's Red Hood because Jason Todd is my favorite Robins and he's been mistreated so much by DC. He has so much potential. He's the black sheep of the Bat family. Yes, he isn't the best Robin like Nightwing or the smartest detective like Tim, but he isn't some stupid meathead like some adaptations depict him to be. He should continue to kill criminals and be the brutal justice that often butts heads with the other members, but at his core, he remains a good person. And the current era we are in the DCU with Batman, I'm willing to bet money this is going to happen sooner rather than later. And with Damian being Robin, I think it's a perfect mirror as to what Damian could become. Him and Jason could have a really good dynamic. Both from the League of Assassins, both killers, and both Robins. I don't want to see Jason be angry at Batman that he was replaced. A bit jealous maybe, but I don't want that to be the main motivation for Jason. I want Jason to push Bruce and to start killing his enemies. And this can be a great contrast to the previous movie where he spent the whole time training this kid not to kill. For Red Hood, we can take some elements from his Lost Days comic, but certain elements, not all, where after his resurrection he goes around being trained by various teachers. We can even have some of those teachers be the same trainers that Bruce had. And throughout these flashbacks when Jason and Talia talk, we can see little baby Damien being held in Talia's arms while meeting with Jason. So when they meet in the movie, Jason can kind of belittle him. Give him a kind of annoying and antagonistic big brother dynamic. But what I don't want this movie to do is treat the identity of Red Hood as a secret. Make it pretty obvious that it's Jason. They can even set this up in Brave and the Bold with Damien looking at the Robin suits and he says some kind of snide remark about how Jason died and that Batman failed his sidekick. Damn, I really want to make Damien such a little shit in that movie. But while it is pretty obvious to the audience, seeing Batman slowly uncover the identity of this new vigilante can be really something to see. Honestly, just copy Under the Red Hood. That movie is near perfect as it is. Just make a few changes with Nightwing and Damien. And we can even have other Batman villains show up in this movie. If you want to get really bold, have Jason kill some of them off. The only few things I would change from the Under the Red Hood movie is Red Hood's plan getting Joker out of Arkham Asylum. Just have him set up a more elaborate plan, or even break him out himself, for that final confrontation between the three of them. But after Bruce and Jason have that final fight, and when it's Joker, Jason, and Batman in the same room, Jason is gonna kill off Joker. I don't have any other ideas for him in the DCU, and honestly, I think everybody is tired of him. I'm tired of seeing him at this point, so why not just make Jason kill him? He's pretty replaceable in the Legion of Doom, and honestly, I never saw him as a team player, so just get rid of him. Going forward in the DCU, it could make Jason really interesting to see where he goes, and it could even make fans like him more, or hate him. Fans are funny like that. But most importantly, it can give Jason some closure so he leaves Gotham and does some mercenary work, or even start up a DCU version of the Outlaws if he's liked enough by the audience. I just really want to see Red Hood on the big screen, finally give him a chance to shine and just show how good of a character he can be. And like I mentioned before, it's been a really popular thing that the fans want for a long time, similar to Superman and Brainiac, so I'm certain we're going to see Red Hood some way or another. We're even going to see him in that dynamic duo animated thing that they're working on. Whether it's canon to the DCU or not, I don't know, but we will see how that pans out. So Brave and the Bold is done. Under the Red Hood, in my opinion, is the most likely story to be adapted to the big screen. So now I guess it's just personal preference. And this one is definitely for me. I mentioned before with Matt Reeves focusing on the corruption and inner workings of Gotham, and in a perfect world his movies will continue to coincide with Batman in the DCU. So I do want to stay away from that. However, I know The Court of Owls is the #1 contender for the Matt Reeves sequel, but I want it here. I want it in the DCU. And look, whether they're in the DCU or the Matt Reeves saga, I don't mind because they're easily in my top 5 favorite Batman villains. They would fit so well for Matt Reeves' dark and gritty underworld side of Gotham, but then they won't do the whole fantastical side of things. I want to see an all-out war between the Bat family and the Court of Owls in Gotham. Think of Captain America Civil War in terms of scale, as this movie could be a culmination between the whole Bat family, as I'm sure we'll get some HBO shows and a Nightwing movie and a Robin spin-off and just a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, if we get the Court of Owls in the Matt Reeves movie and not the DCU, I don't want both. I don't want to double dip villains. So instead of a Court of Owls movie, we can have a No Man's Land kind of movie. Or even like a War of Jokes and Riddles, or just a big city-scaled war between just some enemy group and the Bat family. So what other fantastical villains could we use that Matt Reeves might not? What we want in a villain is someone who can be a planning manipulator and scheming things from the shadows while also being a physical threat for Batman. Unless there are 2 villains in the movie teaming up, like Black Mask, who hires Deadshot or someone like that, for example. Poison Ivy is a really good pick for an on-screen adaptation, but from my vague memory of Batman and Robin, I didn't mind her that much in the movie. But speaking of which, let's take another villain from that movie and hopefully make a better one with this guy. Now, you might be thinking that I'm talking about Bane, another villain in my top 5, and that's a great pick, honestly. Even though he was a villain in The Dark Knight Rises, we can make him different enough in a DCU Batman movie that it won't really ruin the memory that we have of him. But I have other plans for him. The villain I was actually talking about was Mr. Freeze. I want him to finally get the spotlight he deserves. A tragic story and somewhat noble goals, depending on the story, of just trying to save his wife. We also have the Clayface solo movie coming out soon, and if that goes well, I think we could get a Penguin treatment where people go see a Batman movie not just for Batman himself, but to see another character or another villain. I would also love to see the Ventriloquist in some capacity. He's such a cool villain, I love the idea of him. But what I have in mind is why not everybody? I'm talking about a movie based in Arkham Asylum, yet another setting where I think would be perfect for a Matt Reeves movie as well. But specifically in the DCU, it can be a really easy way to show just how colourful these Batman villains are. And if I was in charge of the DCU, this is the first movie I would make for Batman. Just an easy and simple way to show the history of all these villains that have already existed. It really baffles me how we've never gotten a full appearance of the famous location in any big screen adaptation. I'm talking the big gothic mansion in the woods that screams horror movie. And who else to be the antagonist other than Hugo Strange? Our Batman is at his peak, and I don't think I can go on without seeing his adoring fan. Seeing Batman, or even Robin if he's around at this stage, trapped in this hostile environment, kinda like the Raid, would be really cool. And at the end, when Batman confronts Strange, we can see that Strange has also become a victim within these asylum wars, and Batman tries to help him. Throughout all of these movies, I want to focus on the hero aspect of Batman. He is one of the greatest fighters in DC, he's the world's greatest detective, but above all, he is a hero, and I want to see him do heroic things. So there we are. Not everything has to happen in the same way I've spoken about, but something close to it. I want to see that father-son bonding story, Arkham Asylum, an old sidekick back from the dead, Gotham engaged in war. I want to see all of that in the DCU. A fantastical, prime Batman that's doing backflips and kung fu, accompanied by a pre-established Bat family while also staying true to the tone that they're known for. Maybe if we're lucky, we're going to get a world's finest movie as well. I think it's bound to happen. I think it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. But all in all, I am really excited for both the DCU Batman and the Matt Reeves Batman, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for both of them. So thank you so much for watching.